If you've got any sense of how economics and government should work, then you are probably cheering on Javier Milei and what he's been doing for Argentina. But did you know that Japan also has their own version of Javier/Donald Trump? I know, 2 videos in a day, both about Japan. I am on a roll. I didn't plan for this, but I saw this story or this set of tweets and I couldn't pass it up. Yes, Japan has their own up-and-coming Donald Trump, and she is a woman. Welcome back to Words of Paradise. I'm your host, Leon Idle, and I found it absolutely hilarious that a bunch of individuals on X who were, like myself, weebs come in all shapes and sizes. You find them on both sides of the political aisle, which is good. It means the anime has a very actual diverse, route that it can take in terms of the fans it finds. But when you got these weebs who have a certain political persuasion, they are in absolute fear of Japan turning into a Donald Trump land of their own variation. And I hope to God this happens. I want to show you all the female Japanese Trump. Before we do, hit that subscribe button. We are trying to save nerd culture, and to do so, we need all the support we can get. Massive growth in 2024. My channels like mine, are the way to do that. So hit that button, and let's talk about this gal right here. So first of all the Equity Talk does is give the LDP political cover to nominate another total ghoul. So much better if people pay attention to what gender rather than the actual agenda, which will inevitably be arch-conservative. And then we got Richard here. Now this is how I found out about this post. I saw, I don't know who Richard is, but I see the pride flag, and I see him talking about some, potential Japanese prime minister, and I thought, I gotta do me some digging. This is true. Some Japanese friends of mine have stated, I want a woman to be the next prime minister. First of all, I got trouble believing they even have Japanese friends. But, maybe that's just me being too harsh. All I know is that behind closed doors, the Japanese think a certain thing about non-Japanese people. They're very, very culturally homogenous. We'll just put it that way. But hey, maybe you got some Japanese friends, and you know what? If they want a woman to be the next prime minister, more power to them. Because I think this woman they're talking about would be a massive W. Not because she's a woman, but because she sounds pretty awesome. They don't realize that Takaichi's views are closer to Trump, Bolsonaro than mainstream conservatives. She would arguably be the most right-wing prime minister since the end of World War II. Well, considering how Japan has been a subservient mess since the end of World War II, I think that would be awesome for them to have their most right-wing prime minister since then. I mean, you don't need to sell me on this chick any harder, but he does go on. She's the most dangerous candidate to succeed Kishida. Kishida, if you guys don't know, is Japan's current prime minister. If she runs in the next leadership election, the talk of gender equality from the LDP is a way to hide their agenda and move Japan to the right. If she's the next prime minister, LGBT rights and other movements will face major setbacks. Oh, okay, so now the liberals gotta grapple with some stuff. What matters more? The ideology to things like, women in power, to seeing women get to go up and actually have political power and be seen as just like one of the guys, be treated as equals? Or the agenda of the LGBT stuff. You got 2 conflicting ideologies now because they were never meant to go hand in hand in the first place. Those individuals, those on the left, shoved them together because they thought they had a common enemy. They thought their common enemy was the right, the conservatives. When the conservatives have always, more or less, at least always in my lifetime, pretty much had the mentality of, yeah, freedom is awesome as long as you're, being not forcing your views down on anybody else. Now, obviously, that has fluctuated. I lived through the Satanic Panic. Dungeons and Dragons was the devil. Heavy metal music was the devil. Columbine, video games, they were all the devil. Like, I get it. But let's be real. Of the last 15 years or so, who has it been the ones trying to strip rights away and sort of, again, homogenize everything into a very left-leaning sense of right versus wrong, and not allow any sort of dissonance? So, yeah, I said, this sounds pretty awesome to me. Time to make a YouTube video to put her name out there just like Javier. And that's exactly what we're doing. So I wanted to pull up an article about this woman right here. Economic Security Minister Sanae Takaichi has not been bashful about her ambitions to succeed Fumio Kishida as Japan's prime minister, following a surprise endorsement from Shinzo Abe in the Liberal Democratic Party's last presidential race. Don't let that name fool you. The Liberal Democratic Party, that is Japan's conservative party. So when you hear that, you're like, oh, look, a liberal Democrat coming from Japan, of course she's a woman. No. Japan's a little bit different. Kind of like how they read backwards. Their names are backwards too. The Liberal Democratic Party is straight up their conservative party. And let me tell you, Sane here, she got some pretty conservative leans. Let's take a look at some of her political positions before we hop back to that article. Takaichi is a conservative. She's expressed social conservative views, including opposition to same-sex marriage. Now, I understand some of y'all might have some feelings on that. I have some feelings on that as well. I think that marriage in general should be off the table. I think the government should get out of marriage, whether it be gay, straight, or whatever. So if you want to say, hey, Leon, technically you're against gay marriage, you'd be right. I am against gay marriage. I'm also against straight marriage. I mean, that should be between a man and a woman traditionally, but really it should be between any other consenting adults under their faith, in my opinion, and the government should stay the hell out of people's business, but whatever. She opposes same-sex marriage. That's actually a pretty common view in Japan, believe it or not. She also dual surnames. That's an interesting one. It's not very different than the hyphenated names here in the US or in the West in general. You know, you get married, and rather than the woman taking the man's name, they hyphenate him. She doesn't like that, and I'm with her on this one. She claims dual surnames would lead to divorce and affairs, and I completely agree with this sentiment. In fact, I've seen this happen. The woman refuses to take the man's name at all, or they do a hyphenated name. That way she retains a sense of, it's easy for me to leave. I'm not giving up an identity. Once you share a name, you share an identity. And that used to be such a beautiful thing for men and for women. You are now one complete family unit. But by hyphenating the names, or in this case doing dual surnames, it's very easy to just introduce yourself as your maiden name or whatnot and sort of have this other part of you that is not part of the whole. And when you do enter into the contract of marriage, the spiritual contract of marriage, you are not two halves. You are one whole. So yeah, I'm A-okay with getting rid of dual surnames. She claims dual surnames will lead to divorce and affairs. Novelist Kyoko Nakajima says Takaichi has unabashedly maintained the attitudes and policies of Japan's current paternalistic society, thus making her an honorary man. And I mean, hey, an honorary man, that's one less politician that Trump's gonna grab by the pussy, am I right? In regards to the economy, she would continue Abenomics economic policies, and with regard to foreign policy, Takaichi supports revising Article 9 of the Japanese Constitution. Now, this one's pretty awesome, because you wanna know why? Fuck China. That's why. A big ol' staunch fuck you, China. I say probably into a camera that was made in China, into a microphone that was likely also made in China. But Article 9 of the Japanese Constitution prohibits Japan from entering armed conflict. A China hawk, she's been critical of Chinese economic practices such as intellectual property theft and has supported less economic dependence on China. Oh, this woman is the opposite of Nikki Haley, if you ask me. Like, don't get me wrong, Nikki Haley is an absolute war hawk, but she's a war hawk with all the wrong people. Because if we got one major threat, if the biggest threat to our existence, if you ask me, is China, and we are far, far too financially dependent on China. Now we got these Japanese honey out here coming out and saying, you know what? Fuck you, China. I mean, she's probably saying it, with a bit of an accent on account of being Japanese, but I do appreciate the sentiment nonetheless, and if she wants to revise the Constitution to be more hawkish on China, well, you know what? I actually think that's a pretty good idea, because intellectual property theft and economic dependence is one of the biggest banes of the world economy's existence when it comes to China. It's good to know Japan is also in the same boat as us, because once again, that means we've got just that more to be allied towards. Takaichi often cites Margaret Thatcher as a role model. Can this chick get any more based? I don't normally get this political in my videos. Again, my video earlier was about me throwing a fit about some localizers translating Japanese stuff to have, whatever, some wokeness, some agenda, some political tinges to it. Things that all nerds, at least all real nerds, are annoyed about at this point because it takes us away from what we've gotten into. It takes us out of the atmosphere, it takes us out of our escapism, it's immersion breaking, but we're talking legit policy here, and it is glorious to see this woman going after it. The first female Japanese prime minister, if she gets the nomination, if she gets elected, and this is the sort of stuff that she believes in. Again, we are talking about a female Trump or maybe a little less of a Javier Milei, but it'd still be better than what they currently have, what most countries currently have. In 2021, this staunchly conservative Takaichi went from a long shot runner-up. After losing to Kishida, Takaichi took it in stride, stating that she had she went from a long shot to runner-up. Like, yes, it was, so based on what I was reading about her, and I was reading about this on her history earlier, her announcing her, attempt to run, no one thought that she was going to do it. No one thought she was going to come within an inch of whatever the Japanese version of the White House is. Probably made of wood, got the little pointy ceilings, maybe there's like a little Buddhist shrine out front. I imagine that's what the Japanese White House is like. But the point is, she ended up being the runner-up. Well, this article says runner-up. I had read she came in third place in a separate article, which is still very good. So either way, she did far better than anyone gave her credit for. On Wednesday, she made her following move, with Kishida's approval rating tumbling to below 30%. So this Kishida guy, he's the Joe Biden of Japan. Considering the danger zone, Takaichi has taken a practical step towards realizing her goal of winning the country's top job by launching a study group of like-minded politicians called Japan Power. Now, Japan Power is one of two things. You're either looking at Japan Power and you're thinking, that sounds like a Donald Trump move, or you're thinking that sounds like a really bad anime from the 80s that probably got one of the worst localizations and dubs, probably by Deke Studios if I had to guess. Either way, I'm all for it. If I see this, like, this little tiny Japanese woman, you fear Japan Power out there full belting out, lung potential, oh, that is something I can't wait to see. Now, it probably says Nihon and then whatever power is, because that's what they refer to themselves as, but either way, ostensibly to discuss matters related to foreign policy, security, and the economy. Absolute real issues. So, none of this Weasley sort of LGBT stuff or whatever. Like, sure, I get it. Richard on X had that worry about the LGBT side of things. I think foreign policy, security, and economy are probably going to be far more important to the welfare of Japan. In reality, these kinds of study groups are vehicles for building support for select politicians, and Takaichi's move comes less than a year ahead of the next scheduled LDB presidential race. I hope that you're scared, Richard, and I hope that this woman nails the nomination. Not only the nomination, but the full-on election. We are seeing more and more of these types of individuals coming to power in various countries. I can only hope that the U.S. follows suit, regardless of what you guys think about Donald Trump, because I'll be real, I'm actually a Vivek Ramaswamy guy. If given the choice between Trump and Ramaswamy, I'm going Ramaswamy all day. But right now, Trump is the leader of that particular party, so, I'm going to stick with him. Yes, I'm absolutely a conditional Trump supporter. I love Javier Milei, and now that I'm learning more, and I'm going to continue to learn more about Sane Takaichi, I want to see more leaders like this. Leaders that have come in and they're not going to care and kowtow to some ideological mobs on the internet. They're going to come in and make change. And make that change for the individual freedom and for the conservative nature of government. Not necessarily any sort of Christian fundamental conservativeness. No, the idea of a conservative is to conserve government power. Small government. Less people running your life. And that is what all country, nay, all people should need. Because we are that. We are individuals. There are 8 billion of us out here in the world, and we are individuals with our own individual thoughts, wants, dreams, and not everyone is lucky enough to live in nations or even in countries or households where they can be their individual selves, but we live in one here in the USA. Hopefully it continues to be like that, and I can't wait to see other countries be more like us. But those are just my opinions. Let me know yours in the comments down below, or let me know on X where you can find me at Bolt the Word, and please do subscribe. I am a nerdy news channel. I cover nerdy news every day, and while you may or may not consider this nerdy, whatever, weeb's gonna weeb, and I'm one of them. So by all means, check me out on Instagram at wordsofparadise_Leon, and please do subscribe. I'm a nerdy news channel, like I said. Also, I don't only cover stuff about anime, Japan, but anime, movies, music, video games, you name it. It's all here in the Nerdosphere, and this has been Words of Paradise.